What's up guys, welcome back to another video. I'm the Cubophile and today we're going to be taking a look at how to solve the classic 3x3 Rubik's Cube. As always, I hope you are able to gain something out of this tutorial and consider leaving a comment down below if this did indeed help you solve your first ever 3x3 Rubik's Cube. Of course, if you have any questions at all, definitely go ahead and leave it down below and I will try my best to reply and see if I can help you out. So without further ado, let's get started. So before we actually start solving the cube, let's take a look at some of the basic stuff of the cube so you can kind of understand the tutorial better. So, an overview of the parts. These pieces here are called the centers. They are one color and hence the name, are in the center of the cube. These pieces here are the edges. They have two colors and then connect these two centers as you see here. And these are the corners, which are, hence the name, on the corners of the cube, and they have three colors. Another good thing to know is move notation, because this will help you follow along with the algorithms I present later in the video. So here they are. R, R prime, L, L prime, U, U prime, D, D prime, F, F prime, B, B prime. So the first step to actually solving the cube is the cross, which is making all these edges here be white. So all these edges here should have white facing this direction. So this whole thing should be white. So to do this, hold this white center here to the bottom, and then to solve every edge, bring it up to the top and then insert it in, one at a time. So let's start out with this edge right here. First, put it above the slot it's supposed to go in. For example, this is white-green. It has to go here, which is white-green, so we put it above its slot. You see that it is above the spot it has to go in. If white faces towards you, you move it to the side, bring it down, move it towards this white face here, and bring this R layer back up. If you want to do that in algorithm notation, U prime, R prime, F, R, which inserts the green edge in. Now let's try another one. How about this one here? It's the same concept. We have white, red, has to go here, white, red. So we move it above its slot. We see white, red again. And since white is facing towards us again, we do U prime, R prime, F, R, with just like the green and white edge, inserted it in. Now let's try doing this blue and white edge here. As you can see, it's not already on the top. So to move it to the top, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just do an R because that just moved it into the top layer. And as we can see, it's not the same case as we had before. White is now on the top. And so if you have a case like this, it's fairly simple. F2 to insert it in. Now this last edge here, this white-orange, we want to bring it up to the top, but we can't do it like this, since that'll mess up our white-blue edge. So we take it out using R, U, R prime, which takes it out without messing up any other edge. Put it above its slot, and now you can see that we had the same case we had with this blue-white edge. We have white facing the top, and so we do F2 to bring it in. So as you can see, we have now completed the cross, with every edge that has white on it connected to the white center. Now the next step is to insert every corner with white on it into the bottom layer in its correct spot. We start doing this with the same method that we did to insert the edges in. We first put the corner above the slot it's supposed to go in. For example, this is white, orange, blue. It's supposed to go above here, white, orange, blue. So we move it above its slot because, as I just said, it has to go down here. And we want to hold it such that the corner and the spot it's supposed to go in are on this R layer here. So not like this. And so there are three cases now that you have done this. The first, when white is facing towards you, you do this algorithm. R prime, F, R, F prime. And as you can see, that inserted this corner in its correct spot because you see it's conjoined with white, orange, and blue. Now let's do the next one here, which is this white, blue, red, which is conveniently already above white, blue, red. And so we're holding it in its R layer. And since white is facing us again, we do that same algorithm. R prime, F, R, F prime, which also inserted it in. Now, we're getting on to the second case here, which is when we have white facing up. But before that, let's first put it above its slot because white, green, red goes here, white, green, red. And again, since white faces the top, this is a different case, and we have to do this algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. And repeat the sequence of moves 2 more times. So R, U, R prime, U prime. R, U, R prime, U prime. As you can see, that put it in its correct slot. Now, we didn't get all 3 cases here. There is still one more case that you could get, and I'll display it here, which is when we have what the corner above its slot. You can see white, blue, red, but the white is facing to the right here, so if you're holding it like this, you can't see it. So if white is facing to the right, you want to do this algorithm. F, R prime, F prime, R, and that inserts the corner in. Once we have now officially completed an entire layer of the 3x3, it's time to move on to the next step, which is inserting these edges that you see have to go in between these centers here. So let's start out with this edge here, this green-orange edge. The first step is to put it not above its slot, but in the proximity of it. So you see green-orange has to go here, green-orange. You could start out with it either here or here, but I like to start out with having it on the left side here. If, when you have it on the left side here, these colors match up, this is very important. If these colors match up, you want to do this algorithm, holding it like this. U, R, U prime, R prime, F, R prime, F prime, R, which inserted that edge in. Now let's move on to another edge, this green red one right here. So let's do the same thing. We have it in a close proximity of the spot here. You see red green goes here, red green, and we're holding it to the left here. But as you can see, the colors don't match because obviously red and green are not the same color. So let's move it to the other side here because this is also right near the spot it's supposed to go in. And would you look at that, it matches because green is obviously the same color as green. And so if you have it on this side here, you also want to have it facing this direction so that the edge is facing this right side here. And do this algorithm. R prime, F prime, R, U prime, R prime, F, which inserted the edge in here. Now let's try another edge. How about this one, this orange blue? It is in the proximity of its spot, orange blue, and we have it on the left side here, but as you can see the colors don't match. So how about trying the other side, which it does. So we do that algorithm that we just did. R prime, F prime, R, U prime, R prime, F, which inserts it in. And now this last edge here, we put it in its proximity of the spot. And would you look at that? We have it facing us here, and blue matches. So since we have it facing us, we hold it like this and do U prime, R prime, F, R prime, F prime, R, which inserted the edge in. Now, there is one more case that we haven't gotten, which is when you have something like this, where the edge is already in the spot, but flipped. And so, how you fix this case is you bring the corner back up here using R prime, U prime, and doing that sequence of moves 2 more times to bring this corner back up. And now, as you can see, we have red and blue connected here. We want to bring this out here so that we still have this red and blue connected pair here, and insert it back in any way you please, such that it doesn't mess up anything else. And so let's try that one more time with another case here. So the same thing, we have a flipped edge. We bring out the corner, bring out this pair here because its colors match, and insert it back in, just like so. Now, as you can see, we have completed 2 layers of the 3x3. All the colors here so far are matching. Now, the next step is to solve the edges of the last layer. So, as you can see here, we have skipped this step. But there are 2 other cases, so we'll get them out here. The first one is this, where you have 2 edges with yellow on them facing up, and they're horizontal from each other. So, to have all edges facing up like we have here, we do this algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And so now, as you can see, we have all yellow edges facing up. So let's do that again. We have the edges in the horizontal direction, not like this, and F, R, U, R prime, F prime, to have all yellow edges facing up. Now, the third case is this, where you have the 2 solved yellow edges adjacent to each other in this L shape here. How you solve this case is move these 2 edges so that they're in the top left. So you see we have these 2 solved yellow edges that are adjacent to each other facing this top left direction. And you do this algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. So it's the same algorithm that we did for the case with a line, but we just did an extra set of R, U, R prime, U prime moves. And so as you can see, that also made all yellow edges face up. So, no matter which one of those cases you had, you will always end up with all yellow edges facing up. Now the next step is to orient the corners here. So, how you do this is that we're going to do this using a set of R and D moves. So R, R prime, D prime, and D moves. So what you want to do is, with this case here, hold an unsolved corner in this R layer right here. So not like this, so that it's in the top layer and in this R slot. And we want to do a series of R and D moves until the white part faces up. So let's do this by doing R prime, D prime, R, D, R prime, D prime, R. And now we have officially brought the yellow spot up here. Now, by the series of moves we've done so far, you might think that just finish it off by doing a D, but no. Keep it like that. Don't finish the set of moves. Instead, bring over the next unsolved corner, which in this case is over here. In this case, we do it using a U2. Now we have it as it's in its slot here. Bring the corner down, and then resume the algorithm with a D. So now let's start out with the set of moves. R, D prime, R prime, D, R. And that brought it up right here. And as you can see, we have this whole yellow layout solved, all the edges and all the corners on this side here that are yellow. Now let's take a look at a little bit more complicated example. This one right here, which all 4 corners are not oriented. So let's start out with maybe this one here. This is unsolved. So we're going to start doing R prime, D prime, R, D, R prime, D prime, R, D, R prime, D prime, R, D, R prime, D prime, R. That solved that corner. Now let's bring over the next unsolved corner, which is this one right here. We have it here. Now let's bring the corner down and resume our setup moves with the D move. So we have D, then R, D prime, R prime, D, R, D prime, R prime, D, R, D prime, R prime, D, R, and that solved that corner here. Now we bring over another corner, another unsolved corner, and let's start a new cycle of moves. So R prime, D prime, R, D, R prime, D prime, R. That solved that corner. Now let's bring over this one and do the same thing. We bring this corner with yellow on it down and resume our set it moves. So D, R, D prime, R prime, D, R, and that solved the whole this whole yellow side, which is the same result we got with this one right here. And the next step to solving the cube is to solve all the corners. Now how we do that is by looking for headlights. And by headlights I mean what is two corners and an edge, and they should be different colors or they can be the same color. So I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. But you see here, this is headlights because these two corners are the same color and this edge is a different color, so it kind of looks like a pair of headlights. And another thing that could apply here, let's see if I can get it here, is this, an entire bar. So this counts as headlights even though the edge isn't different. So, but you can also think of this as a bar. So, in either case, you hold it to the back, either your headlights or your bar. Let's start with the scramble here. So, we have the headlights, we move it to the back, and we do this algorithm. We move the cube down so that white is facing us, and do R prime, U, R prime, D2, R, U prime, R prime, D2, R2, which as you can see, solves all the corners, and we just have three edges here to orientate. And so let's just take a look at this one here. It's the same thing. You have this bar at the back. You treat it like a pair of headlights, holding it to the back, and doing that same algorithm. Hold white facing you, R prime, U, R prime, D2, R, U prime, R prime, D2, R2. And that had the same effect. As you can see, we don't have a solved bar here. We instead have a whole bunch of edges we have to orientate, but we'll get to that in a bit. And there is, in fact, one more case that there is, so let's see if I can get it here, where there is no actual bar. So let's get it. You see here that there is no pair of headlights or a bar because everything here is a different color and there is no side that has any same colors. So you just want to do the algorithm twice. You can do it from any angle. You do the same thing. You hold white facing you. Again, it could be from here or from here. And you do R prime, U, R prime, D2, R, U prime, R prime, D2, R2. And now you should definitely have a pair of headlights or a bar. And now you hold that to the back like we've been doing and repeat that algorithm. And the final step to solve the 3x3 Rubik's Cube is to orientate these edges here. And there are three possible scenarios for this. And so let's start out with the one we have in our scramble here, where we have three unsolved edges that have to be solved clockwise. So what I mean by that is that you see we have one solved edge by one solved bar, and three unsolved edges, but this yellow-blue edge has to go here, yellow-green has to go here, and yellow-red has to go here. So since it moves in this direction, it's the clockwise direction, and if you have this case, you want to do this algorithm. R2, U, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R prime, which solves the cube. But we're not done yet. Let's get into our second case, which I have here. It's when you have the exact same type of scenario where you have three unsolved edges, but they have to go counterclockwise. So I'll get that here. You see that instead of this edge having to go here, it has to go in this spot here, and the same with all these other edges. So since it has to go in this direction, it's moving counterclockwise, and the algorithm for this case is R, U prime, R, U, R, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R2, which solves the cube from that case. Now, let's get on to our last and final case, which is when we have all the edges unsolved, but they have to be swapped adjacently. So as you can see here, this white blue edge here has to go here to this side here, and this white red edge has to go here. So they have to be swapped this way, and the same with this white green and white orange edges. So how you solve this is that you hold it such that, I'll call this a pair of sides because these edges have to be swapped between these two sides. You want to hold it such that this other side here faces this right side here. So say if you were to do this orange and green part here, you want to hold this part to the side, not like this, where it's facing to the left, but like this, such you have the sides facing you and to the right, and do this algorithm. R prime, U prime, R2, U, R, U, R prime, U prime, R, U, R, U prime, R, U prime, R prime. And that also solves the cube. And just like that, from all the cases, we have now officially learned how to solve the 3x3 Rubik's Cube. As I said in the beginning, I hope this helped you. And again, leave any questions or comments or concerns in the comments down below, and I'll definitely go ahead and answer them. So, until the next video, peace.